Yeah, it'd be neat.
It was Mrs. Bob's mother. And
of Laurel Springs 2013 Centennial Committee. Today we have the privilege of interviewing Marian Pedano Moran, Phyllis Pedano Scherzer. Thank you for coming.
You're welcome.
So we'll start with you, Marian, as you're a whole 20 months older than your sister. And you can just state your name and whether you were born in Laurel Springs, just whatever you.
I'm Marian Pedano Moran. I was born in Philadelphia, and we moved to Laurel Springs after the war in 1942. Well, not after the war, but in 1942.
Your parents?
My parents are Lillian and George Pedano. My brother was George Skip Pedano and Jack Pedano.
My sister Phyllis.
My sister Phyllis. Oh, I'm sorry, Phyllis. Oh my. My earliest memories of Laurel Springs moving here was how small the grammar school was compared to the junior highs in Philadelphia. And I went right into the 8th grade, which graduated in June. It was only 2 months after we moved here. And Mom had to make my dress to look like all the other girls because they made theirs in school. And at that time, our neighbors were Mr. and Mrs. Watson, the Sandys, Mr. and Mrs. Moores, and John and Elsie Steger. They were all on our block. And let's see. My first memories, I think, of it was such a friendly, small town, so small compared to the city where we didn't have to leave our doors locked at night like we did in the city. And let's see, my schoolmates in Laurel Springs School were, from what I could remember, Bob Harper, Betty Lou Smith and Dot Presido, Jean Beard, Evelyn Bryson and Jake Mick, Fred Casaria, Richard Schaefer, Babe O'Brien, Lillian, I forget her last name, Mason, yeah, and Phil Presida and Harry Cardy. And let's see, my teacher at that time in 8th grade was Nani Rogers. And the school activities were just playing the piano in the grammar school. And in high school, it was just selling candy at the football games. The mayors at our time were Mr. Wise, Mr. Cheeseman, Mr. Patton, Mr. Caldwell, Mr. Guy, Jack Hagan, Mr. Horn, and I believe Mr. Woodcock. And the business section, there was a grocery store. It was Demby's. There was Sam's Meat Market. There was an ice cream store that was Artie's. But before Artie, it was Mimi Obrick.
You want to interact anytime you can.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the bank and the post office was also downstairs. And as far as the White Horse Pike area, it was just a bowling alley being built, and the what was the liquor store? Rossick's.
Oh, Rossick's.
Laurel Beverage. Laurel
Beverage.
Beverage. Yeah, Laurel Beverage. And I went to St. Lawrence Church, and I wasn't.
Okay, how about do you have anything to interact on the first page? Any questions that you would
No.
like to add? Yeah. I mean answers?
So I'm Marian's sister, Phyllis Mason Scherzer, which was my mother's maiden name, Mason. And we lived at 213 Broadway in Laurel Springs, New Jersey. I can remember my parents paying $2,500 for the house. And we did live in Philadelphia, 58th and Hadfield, along Cups Creek Boulevard. My memories of the house when we moved in was it was so old compared to what we had in Philadelphia, and it was full of stuff. and the attic was all full of stuff that the people had left there. They were two actresses had owned the house. I went into the 7th grade for 2 months, and then the 8th grade, and Mrs. Fry was my teacher for both classes. And we did a lot for the war effort, earning money for the war effort. And I don't remember who was mayor. And my sister did name all the stores that were in town. I remember the Denbys, and I remember Swartz's 5 and 10. And we used to have fun going every night to pick up our mail. That's when we all met downtown every night. Belonged to St. Lawrence. Okay, now the second page, Marian, go ahead.
We also forgot to mention Laurel Movies, which I was part-time usher.
You were a part-time usher
at Laurel Springs Movies. And on each side of the movies, there were stores. One was Mrs. Foxhill's dress shop.
And then
the other one was a drugstore.
Deli.
On the other side, each side of the movies, there was a store.
But there was, I remember going there eating at a deli.
There was a deli there?
Yeah.
I don't remember.
They kept changing.
I belonged to the Laurel Springs Fire Company Ladies Auxiliary. I was also a brownie troop leader. And let's see, as far as memories of 4th of July celebrations, Mom and Dad were grand marshals one year. And as far as remembering any area farms in the area, we remembered Stafford's farms and Rexon's. Rexon I went to school with. But Stafford Farm, we lived on Stafford's farm for a while. And Bob, my husband now, delivered milk at the time. Let's see, my favorite town memory I can remember is decorating the bank and the cow in the movies and coming out and running up the railroad tracks. And as far as the memories of the lake, it was ice skating and sledding down Park Avenue onto the lake. I don't remember any of the hotels in Laurel Springs. And as far as anybody living here before World War II was Mr. and Mrs. Watson on Broadway and Mr. and Mrs. Curley on Beach Avenue. Yeah, they're the only 2 people. And it was through them we moved down because they both worked with Dad at the Navy Yard.
Oh, that's right. Your dad worked at the Navy Yard.
Yes, yes, So that's about all I can remember.
As far as the activities in the church, I was a den mother for the Cub Scouts. And I used to take them different places. I remember in town the hay rides that we would have that goes down Laurel Road to a farm, and we would have a dance in the barn down there. And then during the war, every Friday night, the town had a dance at where the Borough Hall was then. It's not there now. What mansion is that?
Cord Mansion.
Cord Mansion. Yes. They'd had it there.
Went there.
And I was in the Girl Scouts when I first came, and June Zimmerman was the leader. I did not do anything with the fire company or the police, and Mrs. Zimmerman, June Zimmerman, was the leader of the Girl Scouts. And I remember all the 4th of July parades because my kids won almost every year. Mia was, what's the one outside New York holding the Statue of Liberty? And then they went in as a group with Gloria Zane's children. And then they had to split the medal. And I remember going every night to pick up the mail. The movies I loved, and ice skating, like Marian said, and sledding down Park Avenue on the lake. I do remember the hotel. I think after it turned into apartments that Fran Hardwick lived in, one of the girls in the club. We had formed the club in 1945, and Mrs. Hardwick named us Much Ado About Nothing, and that's what we did.
I do remember about during the war where we had to turn when the air raid sirens went off.
Yeah.
We had to turn our lights off, close the curtains, make it all dark. And then we had air patrol that
Yeah.
did the streets, walked around. But as soon as the air raid sirens went off, you had to close your curtains and make everything dark.
And then they had a siren went off every night at 6 o'clock, up to lately. They took the pole away from Skip's house.
Yeah.
And my husband would say to the boys, when that siren goes off, you better come running down the street to go home. That was about it.
Yeah, we also had 3 choices for high schools. One was, at that time, at Camden County Regional High School, Collingswood or Haddon Heights, because I decided to go to Haddon Heights. But now I think there isn't any choice. You just have to go to the one school.
Right.
Is that Sterling?
Or vocational.
Oh, okay,
Right, yeah.
okay. Mm-hmm.
Now, did you go to Haddon Heights too, Phyllis?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Both of you
Since
to
she
Haddon
went
Heights?
there, I had to go.
Oh, okay.
Oh, and I told you my first formal was at the Stratford Military Academy, but don't remember who took me.
The 2 boys went to Lower Camden County, and my brother Jack made All-American playing football.
Yes, you did. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Yeah. It was a good town to live in.
Yeah.
A lot of memories.
Now, I love
And
Laurel
who
Springs.
put the cow in the movies?
I don't know who did it.
oh.
It was a bunch of boys.
Yeah.
Maybe Bob would remember.
Okay.
I don't know whether he was one
Are
of them
you
or
going to
not.
be here all day?
I'll be here till 3.
Okay, I'll run the picture over.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That's
Yes.
about it from me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very, very much. It's a wrap.